I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head out loud.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions?
This is Callum Smiles for Rebel News, and today I'm in Birmingham. I'm here to bring you a report about a woman who was arrested for silently praying inside her own head. I know what you're thinking. It's absolutely bonkers, and you're absolutely correct. And it happened in this very spot. Here's the clip.
You do not have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later on in court, and anything you do say may be given you. What are you here for today?
Physically, I'm just standing here.
Okay. Why here of all places? I know you don't live nearby.
But this is an abortion centre.
Okay, that's why you're stood here. Is you standing here part of a protest?
No, I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head out loud.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions about today and other days where there are allegations that you've broken public spaces protection order?
If I've got a choice, then no.
Okay, well then you're under arrest on suspicion of failing to comply with the Public Spaces Protection Order, which is under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014. Now, I'll caution you again, you do not have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later on in court, anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand the caution?
I do, yes.
I caught up with Isabel just down the road in picturesque Worcester to find out exactly what happened and what implications for freedom of speech she thinks this may have here in the UK. So I've come to meet Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, who was recently arrested under the Public Space Protection Order for silently and in her head praying outside of a closed abortion clinic. Now, it's important to stress at the very start of this interview that this interview isn't about the abortion argument. It's about overzealous policing. So, Isabel, briefly, what is it you do?
So generally, particularly before the PSPO came into place, I would be going and praying outside the abortion centre and offering alternatives to women there. I run a campaign called 40 Days for Life in Birmingham, and so we have like people in groups of 2 who go there and just offer leaflets which have details of help that's available to women who are maybe struggling, who just want another choice. And we've had lots of women who've accepted those options. But just to make it clear, since the PSPO came in, we haven't been doing that. It was just myself that went into the zone to silently pray, as you say, outside the closed abortion centre.
So what happened exactly on that day? Because I mean, I've seen the video, and when I first heard about it, I, like many of the people, thought surely she was doing something else. Surely what you're saying she's been arrested for can't be the case. Talk me through that day and what happened.
Yeah, and actually a lot of people have said this to me, what was going on before the film was shot, exactly the same as what was going on when it was being shot. So I just went there and I was just silently standing a short distance from the entrance to the abortion centre. It was closed, as you say, and I was just thinking in my head, my thoughts were directed towards God, because I'm a Christian, but I said nothing out loud, didn't speak to anyone, and it was then that the police turned up, 3 police officers, and they came up to me and asked if I was protesting, and I made it clear I wasn't protesting. They then asked if I was praying, and I said I might be silently praying, but that I hadn't said anything out loud. And it was then that they proceeded to arrest me. Did a very thorough search of me, including searching through my hair and confiscating my tissues and all sorts of things that seemed a little bit odd. But then took me to the police station, locked me in a cell for a while, and then eventually interviewed me, wanted to know what I was praying about during the interview, what was going on in my head. Finally released me on bail.
So you're on bail now?
I'm still on bail now, yes, so there's still bail restrictions. For instance, I'm not allowed to go back into that area at all for any reason, I'm not allowed to enter that area.
So Isabel, what is a PSPO and how has it affected you?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of people are not familiar with PSPOs, and to be fair, until they started affecting me, I wasn't that familiar with them either. So a PSPO is a Public Space Protection Order, and they're brought in by local councils. Originally, they were designed to sort of counteract antisocial behaviour like drunken disorderly behaviour or dog fouling and things that had become a problem in local areas. But in more recent years, they've been used particularly to target abortion centres, and they've created zones around abortion centres where certain behaviour is banned. Now, just to make it clear, like everyone else, I would hope, I would want intimidation and harassment to never happen. Certainly not outside an abortion centre, but in anywhere. And that's already banned. You know, there's already laws against intimidation and harassment. But these PSPOs are going further and banning other types of behaviour. And again, to make it clear, PSPOs don't ban people. They ban certain types of behaviour. So one of the things they would ban in Birmingham, for instance, is protesting. But if you look underneath the heading of protesting, it then describes certain behaviours, and it would say things like prayer and counselling if they are forms of protest, which is a slightly ambiguous phrase. And clearly, I presume it was that part of the PSPO which they believe I've fallen foul of, although I've maintained to the police that I have not been protesting. It was merely just silent prayer in my head.
What sort of things have been said since the event? Because I remember you mentioning how women who you could say maybe counselled previously, a lot of them have got in touch. So the work you do has clearly had a positive impact on many. What sort of response have you received?
I've actually been overwhelmed with the response, and personally I've received nothing negative. And what has been really encouraging is the amount of people who've said, I don't support your position from a pro-life perspective. They would describe themselves as being pro-choice or supporting abortion, but that they can see there's something seriously wrong with this, that somebody's thoughts should not be censored, no matter what side of the debate they fall on. And that's been really encouraging and really heartening. And just people from all around the world literally getting in contact, saying either they're praying for me or that they support this cause, or the amount of times the word Orwell or Orwellian has been used, you know, likening the situation to the 1984 novel, which I can certainly see some similarities there with the sort of thought crimes coming into play.
So Isabel, you've told us your side of the story, and this clearly has nothing to do with the abortion argument. How do you think these PSPOs impact freedom of speech and the right to simply protest up and down the country?
Clearly there's going to be massive censorship on freedom of speech, freedom of protest, but I think as we can see already, it's gone much further than that. The fact that it's freedom of thought. I mean, I think in this country a lot of people have already become concerned about certain censorships with regards to people being able to speak freely. You know, we hear about certain events being cancelled at universities because, you know, speakers are considered controversial or whatever it might be. But to say that because somebody's thoughts are something that we disagree with or something that we oppose, that they can no longer think those thoughts in that area, or because they're directed towards God and are considered to be prayers, that is just a new level, really, and something that I don't think we've certainly seen for a long, long time in this country, if we have.
Do you think it'll get worse?
I think the national buffer zones are certainly a possibility for making this worse, because that would bring in zones like this around every abortion facility in the country. And yet in 2018, when the government was discussing bringing in the possibility of bringing in national buffer zones, they did a review, and it was found that it was not necessary, that there weren't activities going on around abortion centres that required this kind of response. And nothing has shown anything new happening in the last years that I'm aware of. Any pro-lifers that I know that go outside abortion centres, like me, believe that women going to abortion centres should be free from intimidation and harassment. That's why I make every effort to make sure every volunteer, whoever joins my campaign, signs statements of peace, that they agree to behave peacefully, not breaking the law, to behave lovingly towards people, because like me, that's what they agree, that every woman going there should be treated with that respect. But that also includes that they should have knowledge of what alternatives are available to them if they want that.
So where do you go from here, both, you know, with your project, and I know you probably can't say much legally, but where does Isabel Vaughan-Spruce go from here?
So from a legal perspective, I've got to appear in court on the 2nd of February at Birmingham Magistrates Court. And obviously, depending on what happens there would depend what could possibly happen, you know, further from a legal perspective as to whether I was found guilty or not guilty. of any kind of crime or breaking a PSPO. Obviously at the moment I'm not allowed in that zone, as I say, for any reason at all. I wouldn't be allowed to walk through that zone to go to the shops or anything.
Is that forever?
And while my bail conditions last, I'm not allowed to. I still run a 40 Days for Life campaign, which last year we ran outside the buffer zone. So it was just a quiet campaign of prayer, again, just 2 or 3 people at a time standing there quietly praying and trying to offer help to women if they should walk past that way on their way to the abortion centre. But obviously it makes it much more difficult for women to reach us if we're, a lot further away from the abortion centre, which clearly we are with the PSPO in place. And ultimately, I think it's women that lose out. I mean, a lot of people think women have made up their mind by the time they come to an abortion centre, and that may well be the case for some women. But there are also others who haven't made up their mind, or have made up their mind based on very limited choices. And once we open up another choice to them by providing them maybe with an offer of, accommodation, financial help, childcare, referrals to counselling, whatever it is they might need, suddenly they realise that that pregnancy is now actually a possibility for them. And it wasn't that they wanted to have an abortion, but they just felt that was the only way forward for them. And I believe that should be open for every woman who's considering abortion, to make sure that she really knows what other options are there for her and is free to take them if she wants. So we will continue to do that outside the PSPO bounds, but at the moment obviously I'm prevented from going into the PSPO.
Well, Isabel, thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the very best with your legal case. Ultimately, this story is not about the controversy surrounding the abortion debate. It doesn't matter if you're pro-choice or pro-life. These public space protection orders and how they've been expanded affects every single Brit up and down the country, with the erosion of our rights to say and even think what we want. This has been Cal Smiles, Rebel News, here in Birmingham, telling you the other side of the story. Here at Rebel News, we bring the stories that matter to you. The BBC, Guardian, or even Channel 4 didn't even bother to bring you this story, because freedom of speech doesn't matter to them. But it matters to us, and it matters to you. And we're completely funded by you, the viewer. So please, head over to ukreporters.co.uk and help where you can. Thank you.